Welcome back, lovely ladies. If you want to become the woman of your dreams, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. And join our Patreon for even more exclusive content. Now, let's dive into today's story.
Andrew's eyes fluttered open to the piercing chime of his alarm. The clock on his nightstand read 6:15 a.m., and sunlight was just beginning to poke through the blinds. His plans for the day were laid out in neat little bullet points in his mind. Shower, get dressed, drink a good cup of coffee, then head to the office for an early meeting. He had a demanding job at a marketing firm and liked to stay on top of his responsibilities. Yet part of his morning routine involved something he rarely discussed with others. On certain days, if time and mood allowed, Andrew liked to slip on a pair of sleek black stilettos and a fitted skirt. He had an entire section of his closet devoted to neatly hung blouses, skirts, and several pairs of heels. They were items he'd collected over the years, a private extension of his wardrobe that felt like a quiet refuge from the usual hustle of life. He had discovered long ago that wearing them gave him a sense of ease. There was a certain confident posture he found when he slipped on that pair of heels. Because it was Monday, often the most stressful day of the week, he had decided the night before that he would indulge in this little personal tradition. He hoped it would give him a boost of confidence before stepping into the cutthroat environment of the office. He figured no one else needed to know. It was his morning routine in the privacy of his own home. He sat on the edge of the bed, yawning, trying to shake off the last tendrils of sleep. "Right," he muttered to himself. "Time to start the day." His bedroom, painted in soft gray tones, felt serene. A large dresser stood across from the bed, upon which sat framed pictures of family and friends, souvenirs from past travels, and a small jewelry dish. He carefully made his way to the closet. Sliding the door open, he glanced at his usual work shirts and trousers on the left, all neatly pressed and hung in color-coded order. On the right side, hidden behind a half-dozen winter coats, were his skirts, blouses, and heels. He pulled out a dark pencil skirt that hit just above his knees. It was made of a smooth fabric that looked professional, but still hugged his hips in a way that made him feel sharp and self-assured. He paired it with a loose white top that draped over his torso. After laying the outfit on his bed, he turned to the shelf that housed his shoes. His favorite pair of black stilettos sat waiting for him, the pointed toes polished to a shine. Andrew ran a hand over the smooth leather. "It's just for a bit," he murmured. "I'll take them off before I head out to catch the train." He headed for the shower, letting the water run hot before stepping under the spray. Steam billowed, fogging up the glass and filling the bathroom with a comforting warmth. After washing his hair and scrubbing off any grogginess, he emerged to towel off. The mirror had steamed over, so he wiped a corner to check his face. At 29, he looked the picture of a confident professional, tall, with a lean physique, short brown hair combed to the side, and friendly eyes that often sparked with quiet amusement. He toweled his hair mostly dry, slicked it into a neat side part, and reached for his clothes. Tugging the skirt up around his waist, he zipped it on the side. He slipped the white top over his head, adjusted the hem, then padded barefoot back to his closet for the finishing touch: the stilettos. As soon as he stepped into them, he felt himself straighten. Standing at his full height, now boosted by the heels, he rolled his shoulders back and gave his reflection an experimental smile. "Okay," he said softly. "Just a quick cup of coffee, then it's back to business as usual." His kitchen was small but well organized, with white tile floors that reflected the morning light. A short countertop separated the kitchen from the living area. The coffee maker sat near the sink, and Andrew grabbed a filter, measured out some coffee grounds, and filled the reservoir with water. The machine sputtered quietly, soon filling the air with a comforting aroma. He scrolled through his phone while waiting, checking morning emails, messages, and any urgent notifications from colleagues. The phone buzzed with a message from Carla, a friend and co-worker who often carpooled with him. Carla's text read, "Don't forget the meeting is at 9 sharp. Want to meet at the train station at 8:15? He typed back, "Sure thing. I'll be there." He double-checked the time, 6:45 a.m. Plenty of time, he thought, to enjoy his coffee, maybe read a few headlines, and then get changed into his typical office attire. A few minutes later, the coffee maker clicked off, and he poured the fresh brew into a plain white mug. The steam rose in little tendrils, carrying the rich, roasted smell he loved. Carefully, he took the mug in hand, steadying himself on the heels. He was usually reasonably good at walking in them. He'd practiced around his apartment for years, but mornings could sometimes challenge his coordination. He took a small sip. "Delicious," he sighed. The warmth of the coffee spread through his chest, helping him shake off the last drowsiness. In a perfect world, he would have sat down at his small dining table, read the news, and sipped the coffee slowly. But a glance at the clock reminded him he was running a bit behind schedule if he wanted to fit everything in. He decided to multitask. He would gather his jacket and work documents from the living area while sipping his coffee. It seemed straightforward enough, though he was about to learn that mixing hot liquids, stilettos, and hurried movement could lead to chaos. He set his phone down on the kitchen counter, deciding he'd pick it up again once he had everything else in hand. Then, with mug in hand, he tried to sidestep around a stack of unopened mail he'd placed on the floor near the trash. His foot, perched precariously on the thin heel, touched a corner of an envelope. The moment felt like slow motion. His ankle wobbled, his knee buckled, and he lurched forward, trying desperately to keep the mug upright. "Whoa!" he yelped as he lost his balance. The mug twisted in his hand, sloshing hot coffee onto the counter, the floor, and most painfully, across his leg. A scalding splash hit the exposed skin between the hem of his skirt and his knee, prompting him to let out a sharp gasp. His momentum sent him stumbling into the kitchen counter. In the scramble, he knocked his phone off onto the floor, where it landed with a sickening clatter. "Ah, no!" he shouted. He dropped the mug entirely then, too concerned about his phone and the pain in his leg. Coffee cascaded across the white tile. He could feel it soaking through his skirt and splashing down onto his shoes. The wave of hot liquid was brief but intense, and the sting on his leg made his eyes water. For a second, he froze in a half-crouch, the stiletto on his left foot skidding on the wet floor. Then, in a rush, he braced himself against the counter and managed to steady his stance. He looked down at the coffee-stained skirt, splotches of brown making the black leather shoes glisten in the overhead light. His phone lay face down in a puddle, the corner of the screen bent against the floor. Andrew let out a rattled exhale, a combination of shock, pain, and exasperation. His hands shook from the sudden adrenaline spike. He carefully stood upright, leaning more of his weight onto one foot to avoid slipping again. Still feeling the burn on his leg, he hobbled over to the sink, turned on the cold water, and splashed it over his hands. In his flustered state, he wasn't thinking clearly. Then he realized the burn was just above his knee, nowhere near his hands, so he splashed water on a paper towel instead, pressed it against his leg, and clenched his teeth. "That's not how I wanted to start this day," he mumbled, dabbing at the splash mark. The area throbbed with heat, and he knew it would probably be bright red in minutes. Next came the more frightening realization about his phone. He turned to see it in the middle of the coffee puddle. Carefully navigating the tiles, he grabbed some paper towels and gingerly picked up the device. The screen was covered in droplets of coffee. He wiped it clean as best he could, noticing that the corner of the glass screen had indeed cracked. Small, jagged lines ran diagonally across the display. "No, no, no," he said under his breath, pressing the power button. The screen lit up, still functional, but sporting a spider web of cracks on the top right side. At least it turns on, he muttered, relieved that it wasn't completely dead. A wave of stress surged through him. He needed his phone in top shape for work. As a marketing coordinator, he was on call with clients all day, answering messages, pulling up documents during presentations, and juggling countless apps. Having a phone with a shattered screen was going to be a huge hassle. He tried to shake off the frustration, placing the phone on a dry part of the counter. He'd figure out how to repair it later. Right now, the mess on the floor was urgent, and his burning legs still demanded attention. He glanced down. The coffee had splashed heavily across one shoe, discoloring the leather and dripping down the heel. The other shoe had a big splash near the toe. His skirt had taken a fair hit too. With a grimace, he lifted each foot to see if there were any worse scuffs, or worse still, if the heel had broken. Thankfully, the shoes were intact, but they were certainly not in pristine condition. Andrew sighed heavily. Part of him wanted to laugh at the ridiculousness of the situation, but the pain from the burn and the dismay over the ruined shoes left him more agitated than amused. Still, there was a certain absurdity to the entire scene, standing there in a coffee-soaked skirt, high heels dripping onto the tile, phone screen cracked, on a Monday morning of all days. "Guess I won't be finishing that coffee," he muttered. He peeled off the heels, set them aside, and then grabbed a wad of paper towels, kneeling carefully to soak up as much liquid as he could from the floor. As he worked, he talked softly to himself to keep calm. Could have been worse. I could have broken my ankle, or the phone could be completely done for. After tossing the first batch of soggy towels, he wet another towel and wiped the sticky patches off the tiles. The smell of coffee lingered, and each time he caught a whiff, it reminded him of how his morning had devolved. His leg continued to throb, so he rushed through the cleanup, wanting to treat the burn with proper first aid. When he finally deemed the floor no longer a slip hazard, Andrew threw away the last batch of towels and hurried to the bathroom. He carefully rolled up the hem of the skirt until he could see the reddened skin. It wasn't too severe. It hurt, but it appeared to be a first-degree burn. He ran cool water over a washcloth and pressed it gently against the area. That helped dull the sting. Staring at himself in the mirror, a shaky laugh finally escaped. "I can't believe I did this," he said, all for a few minutes of feeling like I had my life together in the morning. He decided to apply a bit of burn ointment from a small first aid kit and then placed a bandage over the reddest area. Next, he glanced back at his reflection. The once neat outfit was now stained with coffee spots. The skirt was a lost cause for the day. He had no time to wash it and let it dry before heading out. He changed into his usual slacks, wincing each time the waistband brushed the sore spot on his leg. He decided to toss on a crisp white button-up shirt, then looked down at his battered phone and let out a huff. His rational side told him to just pack up, leave home a bit earlier, and maybe stop by a phone repair shop on the way. The last thing he wanted was to walk into the office with a phone that could malfunction at any moment. On the other hand, he was already pressed for time, and Carla would be expecting him on the train platform at 8:15. He grabbed his laptop bag, wallet, keys, and the phone. The black stilettos, still sticky with coffee, stared back at him from the corner, reminding him of the fiasco. He debated throwing them into a closet to deal with later, but decided he didn't want the coffee to dry on them. So, in a rapid scramble, he used a damp cloth to wipe away as much coffee as he could. He set them aside to properly clean that evening. As he left the apartment, the throbbing in his leg had subsided to a mild annoyance. With his bag slung over his shoulder, he stepped into the hallway of his apartment building. The hallway was quiet, the carpet soft under his shoes. He double-checked he had everything: phone, cracked but functional, keys, wallet. "Morning, Andrew?" He turned to see his neighbor Larry, stepping out of his apartment with a cheerful grin. Larry was a friendly guy in his 50s who liked to greet everyone with a big wave. "Morning," Andrew replied, trying to hide his grimace. "You okay? You look like you've had a morning." Andrew forced a light chuckle. I spilled coffee. You know how it is, clumsy first thing on a Monday." Larry sympathized with a nod. "Happens to the best of us. I'll keep an eye out for any puddles in front of your door, though." Andrew gave a polite wave and moved on, relieved Larry hadn't probed more about his slightly stressed demeanor or noticed the faint splotch on his pants from brushing the coffee-covered skirt earlier. Downstairs, he exited the building and breathed in the crisp morning air. A short walk took him to the nearest bus stop that would connect to the train station. He caught a reflection of himself in a store window as he walked. Tall, neatly dressed, hair in place, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his mood. He tapped the phone in his pocket, the cracks invisible when the screen was locked. Perhaps no one would notice if he stayed quiet about it. But Carla always noticed everything, so he mentally prepared a short version of the story. Upon reaching the train station, he spotted Carla. She was in her early 30s, wearing a fitted blazer and pencil skirt, her long dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She sipped from a travel mug, obviously more graceful with her coffee than Andrew had been. He raised a hand in greeting, trying not to wince when he put weight on his sore leg. "Hey," she said, looking him up and down. "You doing okay? You look a bit off." Andrew half smiled. "I'm fine, just had a mishap with coffee at home." "Mishap, huh?" Carla narrowed her eyes in playful suspicion. "Spill it." Andrew snorted at her unintentional pun. "All right, so I was rushing, tried to do too many things at once, and ended up spilling coffee all over the kitchen, ruined my phone screen, burnt my leg, and destroyed my shoes. Not in that exact order." "Ouch." Carla glanced at his phone as he pulled it out. "Oh, wow, that's a nasty crack. You going to get it fixed today?" "Probably. I just hope it doesn't die on me before that, especially not during the meeting." Carla made a sympathetic face. "Monday mornings can be brutal enough without that. Sorry it happened to you." She took another sip from her mug. "No wonder you look frazzled." Andrew nodded, feeling a swirl of relief at sharing the story, if only partially. He certainly wasn't going to mention the stilettos. They boarded the train, which was still relatively empty at that hour, and took seats facing one another. The ride would be about 20 minutes to the central business district. Carla launched into talk of the upcoming meeting, referencing slides and data they needed to present. Andrew forced himself to focus, occasionally rubbing the side of his phone to check for any further damage. When they arrived at the station, they stepped out into the steady bustle of commuters. The city's tall buildings rose around them, glass facades reflecting the early sunshine. They navigated the crowded sidewalks until they reached the large office tower that housed their marketing agency. The lobby was busy, people scanning badges, a hum of elevator chimes, and conversation echoing off marble floors. Up on the 10th floor, they entered the firm's open-concept workspace. Rows of desks sat side by side, with a few private offices along the perimeter. Andrew's desk was near Carla's. As he dropped off his laptop bag, he caught a reflection of himself in the black window. He looked presentable, but he still felt a dull throbbing in his leg. He spent the next hour preparing for the meeting, flipping between emails and documents, hoping his phone would hold out. At one point, it buzzed with an incoming text, and he carefully tapped the cracked area to unlock it. The text was from his friend Daniel. "Hey man, you free for dinner this week? Got some tickets to a comedy show Thursday." Andrew typed back, "Sure, let's do it. I'll call you later." Even that small exchange required him to maneuver around the broken corner of the screen. With a frustrated sigh, he set the phone aside, mentally noting to call a repair shop on his lunch break. The meeting started at 9 on the dot. Andrew and Carla presented their campaign plans to a group of executives. Andrew led the discussion, referencing slides that displayed trends in social media engagement analyzing how the marketing budget would be best spent over the next quarter. Despite his rough morning, Andrew performed well. He moved through the details with professional polish. The only moment of discomfort was a sudden throb in his leg, reminding him of the coffee burn, but he kept his face neutral and powered through, earning nods from the higher-ups by the time he concluded. After the meeting, he and Carla stepped out into the hallway. She grinned. "You killed it. They loved your pitch." Andrew exhaled, letting the tension slide off his shoulders. "Thanks. Let's hope the rest of the day goes more smoothly than my morning." She let out a warm laugh. "I'm hitting the break room for some water. You want anything?" "No, I'm good. Thanks, Carla." As Carla left, Andrew headed back to his desk, opened his laptop, and searched for nearby phone repair services. One place was just a couple of blocks away, and the estimated repair time for a cracked screen was a few hours. He decided he'd drop it off at lunch and borrow Carla's phone if something urgent came up. A few coworkers drifted by, offering casual hellos. Andrew forced smiles in return, fully aware of the slight limp he had whenever he put weight on his burnt leg. Around noon, he and Carla grabbed lunch together, a quick sandwich from a deli nearby, and Andrew made a detour to the repair shop. "I'll be back in the office soon," he told Carla. "Just going to see if they can fix this quickly." She waved him off. "Take your time." The repair shop was a hole-in-the-wall type of place with a sign that read, "Mobility Fix." Inside, a teenage employee was scrolling through a tablet, while a manager, a man in his 40s with glasses perched on the tip of his nose, inspected a phone behind the counter. Andrew approached. "Hi, I cracked my screen." "Let's see," said the manager, taking Andrew's phone. He grimaced at the jagged lines. "Nasty crack, but nothing we can't handle. Probably about 2 hours if we have the part in stock." Andrew hesitated. "I'm from a company just down the street. Can I drop it off now and pick it up later this afternoon?" "Sure. Fill out this form." As Andrew jotted down his details, he noticed how quiet the shop was, aside from the low hum of an air conditioner. He felt a slight twinge of anxiety. What if they poked through his files or photos? He did keep some pictures of himself in his favorite outfits stored on the phone, but realistically, he doubted they had any reason to go snooping. Handing over the phone, he sighed. "Thanks. I'll be back around 3 if that's okay." "Works for me," the manager replied. "We'll let you know if we run into any issues." With that, Andrew left the shop, his pocket feeling oddly empty without the usual weight of his phone. He hurried back to the office. The afternoon passed in a steady flow of emails, handled on his laptop, some phone calls, routed through his desk line, and occasional check-ins with coworkers. By 2:45, he decided to slip out again to pick up the phone. He grabbed his jacket, told Carla he'd be back soon, and headed outside. The burn on his leg felt better now, still tender, but no longer throbbing with each step. He tried not to think about the cost of the screen replacement. Back at the repair shop, the manager beamed. "All set," he said, handing Andrew the phone. "Good as new." Andrew turned it on, relief flooding him as the screen lit up, pristine. He thanked them, paid, and stepped outside onto the sidewalk. Testing the phone, he scrolled through messages, noticing one from Daniel. "Let's finalize the dinner plan. I'm thinking tacos, then comedy show. Sound good?" Andrew typed back a quick confirmation, grateful the phone felt just like it had before. Then, slipping the device into his pocket, he started the short walk back to his building, weaving through the crowd of office workers out on various errands. The afternoon soon wound down. Around 5:30, Andrew shut down his computer, grabbed his belongings, and said goodbye to Carla. He decided to walk home instead of taking the train, hoping the exercise would clear his head. The city's late afternoon sunshine cast long shadows on the pavement, and a cool breeze hinted that fall might be around the corner. As he walked, He replayed the morning's events in his mind. The coffee fiasco, the phone drop, the frantic cleanup. Now that enough time had passed, he felt more amused than embarrassed. He imagined telling the story to a stand-up comedian friend. Maybe they would find gold in the comedic aspects of it. Upon entering his apartment, the smell of lingering coffee greeted him, a subtle reminder of the chaos. The tile floor was clean, but the faint aroma still hung in the air. He set his bag on the couch and made a beeline for the bedroom. First, he changed out of his work clothes into a pair of soft lounge pants and a t-shirt. Then he remembered the coffee-soaked stilettos, which he had placed near the closet. He picked them up gingerly, grimacing at the coffee stains that had dried in small patches along the toe and heel. He muttered, "Let's see if we can salvage these." He fetched a damp cloth and a mild cleaning solution, carefully wiping away the dried residue. Luckily, the coffee hadn't been there for too long. As he gently wiped the leather, a faint memory of the chaos washed over him, the scalding liquid, the panic, the phone slipping out of his reach. The memory still made his heart pick up speed, but he found himself chuckling about it now. Once he was satisfied the stilettos were mostly restored, he set them near an open window to air dry. He took the coffee-stained skirt and dropped it into the laundry hamper, hopeful that the stain remover he used would rescue it. His stomach rumbled. He realized he hadn't really eaten much since that sandwich at lunch. Checking the time, just before 7, he decided to whip up a quick dinner. As he boiled pasta and sautéed some vegetables, his mind wandered back to that sense of confidence he felt when he first put on the heels that morning. A small pang of regret tugged at him. Maybe if he'd been more careful, the fiasco wouldn't have happened. Or if he'd simply waited until after finishing his coffee to walk around on the tile floor. But there was no point in dwelling on hypotheticals. He ate dinner at his small dining table, letting the normalcy of the routine calm him. Then, with the quiet of his apartment enveloping him, he decided to call Daniel. "Hey, man," Daniel answered after a few rings. "How's it going?" Andrew pulled his feet onto the couch, sinking into the cushions. "It's been a weird day, that's for sure." "Oh? Work drama?" Andrew let out a short laugh. "Not quite. More like a morning disaster. I spilled coffee everywhere, cracked my phone and burnt my leg." "Whoa, are you okay?" "I'm fine now. Just a little burn, but it's nothing serious." Daniel whistled. "Man, your Monday was way more eventful than mine. I just got stuck in traffic." Andrew laughed along. "I'd trade you for that." They discussed the plan for Thursday's comedy show, settling on an 8 p.m. start time with dinner beforehand. Andrew loved hanging out with Daniel. He was laid back, never prying too deeply, and always up for a good laugh. After the call, Andrew spent the rest of the evening doing light chores and tidying up. Before turning in for the night, he checked the shoes again. The coffee stains were mostly gone, leaving only a slight discoloration near the heel that might be noticeable only to him. He set them back in the closet, telling himself that next time he'd be more cautious if he ever tried wearing them while handling hot liquids. Tuesday morning came around, and Andrew was more than a little wary. He slept through his alarm by 15 minutes, waking in a mild panic. He rushed to get dressed in standard work attire, this time no private footwear experiment. The memory of yesterday's fiasco was still too fresh, and his leg, while better, was tender enough to remind him that one slip could cause a lot of trouble. All day at work, Carla kept giving him knowing looks, occasionally teasing him about the coffee incident. "Careful on your lunch break," she'd say with a grin. "You might want to avoid boiling soup." Andrew took the ribbing in good humor. He stuck to drinking iced water from a sealed bottle at his desk to avoid a repeat performance. That evening, he met an old friend, Eva, for a casual dinner. Eva knew about some of Andrew's preferences, though not every detail, enough to understand that sometimes he liked to wear items not typically associated with men's wardrobes. It was a comfortable understanding between them that didn't require too many questions or any kind of explanation. They settled in at a small Italian restaurant. The table was near a window overlooking a busy street. Andrew fiddled with the cutlery while Eva studied the menu. She asked in a gentle tone, "So, are you doing all right? You look kind of tense." Andrew chuckled. "I'm okay. Just had a bit of an incident with coffee yesterday morning. My phone got smashed, I burnt my leg, and my favorite shoes took a hit." She blinked in surprise. "That's quite the list. Are you all healed up?" He nodded, swirling the ice in his water glass. "Yeah, mostly. I'm just a bit shaken every time I walk into my kitchen." Eva laughed softly. "I'm just imagining you in the middle of a coffee tidal wave. You're lucky you didn't end up breaking your elbow or something." Andrew smiled sheepishly. "Seriously, it's one of those things that's going to be funny a week from now, but at the time, it was terrifying." They ordered pasta and shared a small pizza. Over dinner, they chatted about work, Eva's new project, and Andrew's plans for the weekend. He didn't go into the specifics of what he'd been wearing at the time, only that he'd been trying to multitask and slipped. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted to light gossip, movies they wanted to see, and any upcoming holiday plans. Through it all, Andrew felt a slow unwinding of the tension in his shoulders. Once dinner concluded, Eva offered him a ride home. In her car, they turned on some low music. She gave him a curious glance. "Are your shoes completely ruined, by the way?" He shrugged. "I cleaned them up. They're mostly okay, just a little discoloration near the heel. I might try some polish." She nodded. "Well, that's good. Don't let a little coffee mishap keep you from your routine." Her words made him grin. There was a comforting acceptance in her tone that he always appreciated. Though that morning had been a total mess, he didn't want it to scare him away from enjoying the simple things that brought him a sense of inner strength. He thanked her for dinner and stepped out of the car. Heading up to his apartment, Andrew felt physically exhausted, but mentally lighter. Back inside, he ran a warm bath to soothe the soreness in his leg. The water stung slightly, but once he settled in, it felt soothing. He replayed Monday's comedic disaster in his head, marveling at how quickly life could pivot from calm to chaotic. Wednesday passed without incident. Andrew worked steadily, took his lunch break at a new cafe with Carla, and handled some small projects for a client. That evening, he managed to do his laundry, scrubbing the coffee-stained skirt with stain remover. It came out better than he'd expected. Most of the brown splotches were gone, leaving only a faint patch that might be noticeable if you looked closely. Thursday arrived. Andrew had been looking forward to meeting Daniel for dinner and the comedy show. The day was uneventful at work, a steady flow of emails and phone calls. By 5 p.m., he powered down his computer, grabbed his bag, and hurried out. They met at a taco place near the venue. The smell of grilled meats and fresh cilantro wafted through the air as they found a booth near the back. Daniel placed an order for both of them, a couple of burritos, chips, and guacamole. "So," Daniel said, leaning forward with a grin, "let's hear the full story of your coffee fiasco, because the short version sounded wild." Andrew's cheeks warmed slightly. "You sure you want the details?" Daniel laughed. "Yes, I live for chaotic stories that aren't mine." Andrew took a swig of water, set the cup down, and gave Daniel a play-by-play, minus the specifics about the stilettos and skirt. He explained how he tried to juggle coffee, the phone, and the morning rush. He ended on the part about frantically cleaning the floor while his leg burnt, concluding, "By the time I was done, I had coffee stains all over me, and my phone screen was shattered." Daniel whistled. "Dude, that's intense. I would have sworn off coffee forever." Andrew shook his head. Nah, I love coffee too much. I just need to be more careful in the mornings. Their food arrived, and they ate with gusto, trading stories of other minor disasters they'd each experienced over the years. After polishing off their burritos, they headed to the comedy club, a small underground venue with brick walls and dim lighting. The comedian they came to see was a rising talent, witty, with a self-deprecating style. Halfway through the show, Andrew felt tears rolling down his cheeks from laughter. The comic talked about everyday mishaps, including a bit about struggling with home appliances and slipping in the kitchen. Andrew nearly choked on his laughter, elbowing Daniel in amusement. It was as if the set had been written specifically about his Monday morning. When the show ended, Andrew and Daniel stepped outside, the night air cool against their faces. They said their goodbyes, promising to meet up again soon. Andrew caught a ride-share back to his apartment. Once inside, he flicked on a lamp and sank onto his couch, letting his head fall back. Memories of the comedic performance blended with memories of his own coffee fiasco. He realized that in many ways, the comedic spin on daily challenges was exactly how he wanted to view the world. Life was bound to throw slip-ups and spills at you. The best you could do was laugh when the dust, or in his case the coffee, settled. Over the weekend, Andrew finally decided to treat the coffee stain on his shoes more thoroughly. He spent a painstaking half-hour applying a specialized leather cleaner with a soft cloth, buffing it until the shoes regained much of their original luster. He had a moment of light-hearted pride when he slipped them on to check the final result. "Not bad," he said softly. There was still a barely perceptible difference in color on one heel, but he could live with that. That Sunday afternoon, he took some time to fully reorganize his closet. He placed his favorite outfits in protective covers, ensuring they wouldn't get dusty. The black stilettos, though no longer in perfect condition, found their place on the top shelf again. He thought back to that fateful morning, how quickly a simple indulgence could spiral into a calamity. But it also gave him a story he'd retold throughout the week, one that had brought laughter to friends and coworkers. By the following Monday, life had returned to its usual rhythm. Andrew woke up earlier, triple-checked the time, and opted for a safer approach. He made his coffee, poured it into a secure travel mug, and only then considered wearing anything special around the house. As he stood in front of the mirror, sipping from his travel mug, he paused to reflect on the swirl of events that had happened just a week prior. He took a careful step in the heels, feeling that old sense of poise in his posture. But this time, he gently placed the mug down on the kitchen counter before taking another step. No more juggling acts. He allowed himself a small, private smile. Then he walked slowly around his apartment, each click of the heels on the floor reminding him of that line between composure and utter chaos. This time, no coffee, no phone in hand, just a focused stance, a deliberate movement. It felt calming to hear the rhythmic taps against the tile, without the looming threat of a spill. He allowed himself a few minutes of enjoying the moment, then gently slid out of the heels, wiped the counters for good measure, and changed into his typical work attire. Before walking out the door, he snagged his phone from the charger, verifying once again that the replaced screen was holding up fine. Everything looked bright, intact, and ready for a new day. In the weeks that followed, whenever conversation drifted to worst Monday mornings, Andrew had an anecdote at the ready. At the office break room, coworkers would poke fun. "Hey Andrew, watch out, someone brought hot chocolate today." "Don't remind me," he'd say with a chuckle. "I learned my lesson." Meanwhile, Carla never pressed him on the details he left out. She knew Andrew well enough to let him keep certain things private. Eva occasionally teased him gently about the coffee fiasco, but never pried further. And Daniel, well, he just found the entire series of events comedic, eager to remind Andrew that if he ever wanted to try stand-up himself, he had a golden story. Still, behind all the jokes, Andrew held on to the memory of that cold splash of reality and hot splash of coffee. He recognized that part of him was determined to maintain a sense of calm in the face of life's little disasters. No one goes through life without the occasional spill. His just happened to involve a pair of black stilettos on a Monday morning, setting the stage for a story that would live on in his mind as a testament to how quickly a moment of quiet indulgence could turn into a comedic storm. And each time he dressed up, making sure no hazards lay in wait around the kitchen, he silently reminded himself that he could still enjoy his morning routine as long as he remembered to avoid juggling steaming beverages in those tall, precarious heels. The burn on his leg healed fully over the next couple of weeks, leaving only a faint mark for a short while. The phone, once repaired, served him faithfully every day, no further cracks creeping across the screen. His shoes, though slightly discolored, still made their occasional appearances. Time passed, and eventually, Monday mornings no longer held the weight of that incident. But Andrew wouldn't forget it. In fact, it fueled some of his lighter moments whenever he needed a reason to laugh. If a day was going poorly, he would think, "At least I haven't spilled coffee on myself and broken my phone today." Late one Friday evening, after a demanding work week, Andrew stood in front of his mirror again, feeling both tired and a little adventurous. He slipped on a comfortable skirt and a pair of heels, not the black stilettos this time, but a more modest pair. As he observed his reflection, he nodded to himself, acknowledging both his interest in these clothes and the comedic memory of that chaotic morning. The phone on his bedside table buzzed. He saw Carla's name flashing on the screen. "Don't forget to relax this weekend." He sent back a quick reply, "I'm definitely trying." Setting the phone aside, Andrew prepared a cup of tea, a safer choice than coffee for late at night, and carefully carried it to the living room, wearing the heels with pride and caution in equal measure. He placed the cup on the coffee table before he settled on the couch, making sure there would be no accidental spills. There, in the gentle lamplight of his home, he sipped the tea slowly, letting the warmth soothe him. Outside, cars passed by, their headlights tracing patterns on the walls. Inside, Andrew reflected on how life's comedic moments often grew out of simple routines gone wrong. And yet, they offered a vivid reminder of how unpredictability could strike at any time. He wouldn't trade away the sense of confidence he felt in those moments of dressing up, just as he wouldn't pretend the accident never happened. It was all part of the tapestry of his everyday life, sometimes messy, often unexpected, but always worth navigating with a wry smile. Putting down the teacup, he let his gaze wander over to his closet. He thought about the black stilettos on that top shelf, the skirt he had laundered back to a near pristine state. Yes, the memory still stung a bit, especially when he thought of the pain of that burn or the money spent fixing his phone. Yet it also made for a story that brought laughter to his friends, broke the ice at work, and even added a dash of humility to his otherwise well-organized existence. Andrew flicked off the living room lamp and padded quietly to the bedroom, heels tapping lightly on the floor. He placed them by the closet door, where he could see them first thing in the morning. He set an alarm on his phone, ensuring there'd be no frantic rush the next day. Before climbing into bed, he took one last look around, verifying that there were no hazards he might trip over in the morning. Content with the tidiness, he pulled back the covers, laid down, and let his eyes close. Monday would come again soon enough, and with it, the potential for new mishaps. But for now, he could rest, knowing that even when things went hilariously wrong, he was still standing, maybe a bit scalded, maybe out a chunk of change, and maybe with shoes stained by coffee, but standing nonetheless. In the quiet stillness of his apartment, he recalled how that worst morning ever had ended in a bit of laughter after the panic subsided, and that was enough for him.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.